Hey everyone, this is Just Plain Lucas. I thought I'd go ahead and do a quick video review on this brand new amazing loop coaster, Lego loop coaster, that I just put together earlier this week. It took me about a weekend, say off and on, maybe about 10 to 12 hours. I just wanted to go over some things. First and foremost, I wanted to compare it to the older roller coaster that I put together 4 years ago. I think I should also have a video review on that, just to point out some differences. So as you can see, this one has a little bit more volume to it as opposed to the loop roller coaster. The loop roller coaster is more intimidating just because of the massive tower there. But as you can see, track-wise, there's a little more going on in the original one, whereas in this one, the track length is not as complex. So the ride itself is over pretty quickly for the amount of work that's involved in putting it together. But because it does have a couple more loops, it's a little bit more exciting than the old roller coaster, which is just hills and curves. But you can also see that there is a little extra track, so you can actually run 4 trains on at once and have like an extra train ready to go for on standby. You can't really do much with this one. There's no extra track to have an extra train on standby, and it only has space for 1 train altogether. So that's kind of a disappointment in that regard. Another thing too is the old roller coaster clocked in at over 4,100 pieces and sold for $380, whereas this one is a little over 3,700 pieces, selling for $400. So it's $20 more expensive than the old roller coaster with less pieces. And there is an average that I go by that I've noticed. It's about 100 pieces for every $10. So this is below that cost-effective average. So that's kind of a knock against the set. So if you're really trying to get the most bang for your buck, this one may not fulfill that. So now let's just go ahead and stick to this roller coaster and point out some of the things that we have going on here. So you're going to see a bunch of minifigures, and I'm sorry I made a mess. I was trying to fix something and I realized I didn't put it together correctly. So it's this little mechanism here. I accidentally threw away one of the gears, so I got to order one to get it fixed. Basically, this assembly would go right here, and what it would do is it would help kind of push along the train to get to the lift right here. But when I started running it without the wheel assembly, I noticed that it still had plenty of momentum left to get back to the lift, and then you'll see that when I turn it on. Let's see. So little features here, we have the pretzel stand, we have a hot dog stand, we got several different riders, we got a balloon artist who is giving a balloon to the little kid there, and you can actually see a balloon animal right there. There's a park bench along with a map. Now, the one thing that you may have noticed if you take a look here, see there's empty space from corner to corner that they could have used. They could have put a few more plates there and actually had the park bench attached. See, the park bench is not attached to the base plate. And they could have had the stands and everything kind of all on one base. So when you pick the whole thing up, you don't have to worry about keeping track of odds and ends. So a little disappointed in that regard. But yeah, so it just like the original, it has a path that leads to some stairs that lead up to the queue. Now, if you notice, the queue here is a little more easily accessible. And I'm sorry for the dust. I've been meaning to clean this thing. So you can actually have more room to maneuver minifigures around. But here, if you're changing out the minifigures, it's a little more awkward because you have this awning over here, or this roof, that makes it a little harder to get your fingers in. So it's a little trickier changing them out. Then, of course, we have this massive tower. Now it has to be cranked manually from the default. So the crank is right here, but cranking it over and over and over and over again does get really old. So if you want to automate it, you can, but it's going to cost you a little bit extra because there's a battery pack right there, and then we have a motor that's attached right there. Those are separate. I think it's like $80, maybe $90. No, I want to say it's about $80 for the two together. So I went ahead and had to do that because I did not want to continue to keep cranking it. And also the one thing that I've noticed, if you crank the handle, the tower is going to shake a little bit more back and forth, whereas if you just put the motor on, it's a little more sturdy. And as far as sturdiness goes, you can see that there's a support beam here and a support beam here. But when you watch the cars roll around and do the loop, you're going to see that this loop rocks back and forth. And even though it doesn't really look as sturdy as it could be, I think it's going to be fine. But however, I would have liked to have seen maybe an anchors on the side, some further anchors to continue to keep holding this thing down from moving. Because I'm a little worried that if you continue to keep running it all day, the vibrations will eventually work something loose and you have something break in the middle of a run, and it's just going to cause you extra problems. And as far as as far as how easy it was to put together, I would say for the most part it was easier to put together than this one here. This one had a lot of beams and a lot of extra things that you had to pay attention to make sure that they all lined up. But this tower proved to be a little bit more tricky, mainly because of the pulley system, the counterweight, and the lift right here. This lift right here kind of gave me some problems. It's kind of delicate when you're putting the first steps together. You have to make sure that gears and everything are nice and tight, and when I was trying to do that, I kept breaking some of it, and I had to keep putting it back together. What's also tricky is you can see that this cord here, it's not focusing very well. The cord actually needs to be tied to an anchor and to the wheel over here. You have to tie that yourself. So if you're not good at tying knots, that's going to be a wrench in the works. So if you can't really tie any knots, like you could probably just super glue them or hot glue them or something like that. They're not too weighty. There's not too much force being applied, so you don't really have to worry about the cord being snapped out of the anchor or wherever you tie it to. So with all that said, I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. We'll go ahead and turn the motor on. Now the thing is, when you get this battery pack, it doesn't come with anything else, which means that there's no way to anchor this battery pack to the set itself. You're going to have to buy extra pieces in order to do that. And you don't actually have, see how there's a hole here? It's a hole for one of those little pipe type things. That doesn't come with one, so you're going to have to end up getting one to actually have it like a normal switch. So in order for me to turn it on, I actually kind of have to get my finger in it, my fingernail, and then give it a push. So you can see that the motor is pulling it up, rolls off, does a loop, comes back around, and then I'm going to keep the camera focused on the lift, because what I want to show you is what happens as it lowers down. It comes down a little too fast for my taste, and I'm just a little afraid that it's going to end up breaking something with continuous drops. So as you can also see, there's a lever that's right here that lowers and raises the stopper here. But did you hear? Did you see how it bounced? I'm just trying to figure out what else I can do to make it slow down a little bit more. So, but yeah, as you can see, without that tire assembly, that little tire assembly I forgot to fix, it actually rolls down back to the lift, back to the starting point with no problem. So I think that was an unnecessary step in the design of this build, in my personal opinion. There was one other thing though that I kind of wished I would have done. I would have liked to have a hub that I can actually control with my phone, where I can have it raise up and then lower using mechanical power instead of gravity, because I want to show you how smooth it is. Whoops. By using the actual switch instead of letting gravity do the work. So turning the switch off, and I'm turning on the opposite direction. Now see, it's much more smoother and much more safer. So there is a hub that you can get to use an app for it, and you can program it and set it up the way you want it, but that's an extra $50, and I already spent an extra $80 on the motor and the battery pack, so I decided this will work for now. So yeah, so that's the review of this roller coaster. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it, but I think ultimately I've had more fun with this one, because it just seems to be a little more involving as far as the actual ride goes. It doesn't have any loops, but it's not over in the blink of an eye like this one. So they both have their ups and downs, and if you're a roller coaster Lego enthusiast, you're probably going to want to have them both and run them at the same time. So anyway, thanks for watching.